Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joelle Simone Anthony. I am also known as the Gray Woman, and today I have the honor of being joined by my high school classmate, actually middle school and high school classmate, Miss Megan Ijiga. Now,
Hello.
so Megan, you are here today because we are going to talk about a topic that we don't really talk about in the Black community, which is domestic violence. And I don't want to say unfortunately, but sadly, you are a not only a witness, but a secondary victim of domestic violence because your mother, Miss Cynthia Sellers, was murdered by her boyfriend,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. Tell me about your mom and tell me about what it was like growing up with your mom.
Well, it was exciting. Many people don't know that my mother played in a softball league. They had a softball league for women in Port Royal, and she played in the softball league. She would take me, my brother, my sisters to the games with her. And we were very young. I'm talking like maybe 3 and 4 years old. And she always worked. She always had at least two jobs. So we definitely saw the struggle growing up. You don't quite understand everything when you're that age to know what's going on. But every day wasn't a bad day, but it was mostly those dark and gloomy moments of when you're not understanding why mommy's crying, why she may be going through something, because you don't really understand. But not every day, like I said, was a bad day, but we definitely experienced those times in the home where it was just not happy.
And so when you say not happy, you're referring to witnessing her or your mother's boyfriend exchange violently with her, or
Yes, there were times when she might have gotten jacked up in front of me. And there was also a time when I'm woken up out of my sleep from fighting, which were like the worst times, because you're defenseless, you're scared, you're helpless. Um, and it was times like that when I saw her get hit physically only a few times, but mostly it was behind closed doors where you can hear the violence happening.
wow. And what did that feel like to you?
Oh, man. I felt scared and helpless. Um, I don't know if you were taught this in your home, but kind of like in my home, you don't tell what happens in your home because
What
you don't need
happens in this house
household.
stays in this
Yeah,
house.
exactly. You don't need the whole community in your business because it can bring about embarrassment, and things of that sort. But at that age, yeah, you feel helpless, like you want to help your mom, but you don't know how to help your mom. And if you help your mom, you may get hurt as well. So she was just trying to protect herself as well as us, but she was mostly the one experiencing the abuse.
So tell me your mom's boyfriend's name again, please.
Douglas Pinkney.
Douglas. Okay, so
And at the time, I want to say a disclaimer, at the time that she was taken from us, they weren't together.
they weren't
But
together. Okay.
they weren't together. What happened was he was in a car accident like a year or so before where he got paralyzed. And at that time, my mother was just done with the relationship because it just ran its course. But because he had no other place to go, his family wouldn't accept him in a nursing home. I guess he didn't want to quite go to. He moved back into the home with us. The mother wasn't sleeping in the same bed with him or anything. She would mostly sleep in me and my sister's room to let him know you're just a roommate in the house now. We are not a couple or anything like that. But and it would be, I guess, a safe to say, okay, she dated him, but he came in the home so she can help him get back on his feet and things like that. But the romance, the relationship, it wasn't that anymore.
Your mother had to have a very big heart after having that traumatic experience and then
You
not
used
only
the
opening
correct
her
word.
home.
Yes, you used the correct word because I was 14 at the time, and I asked my mother, I said, why would you let him back in here? And Joelle, the very same thing you said, she said, Megan, because I have a heart. She said the exact same words to me. I have a heart. And she did, and she let him back in to get him back on his feet, to get his health back up. But she made it very clear to him that we're not a couple. And at that time, he couldn't accept that because no one else would help him but my mom. And all he had was me, my brother, and my sister. I would come home from school and I would fix his bath water and help him put his clothes on and things like that. And, we were his family.
So what was that like for you to have witnessed this person be violent towards your mother, not be able to defend her, but then have to turn around and help him do basic everyday needs? What was that like for you? And did you resent your mom any for that when that was happening?
I did. I was very angry with her. She sensed my anger towards her because I couldn't understand, Mommy, this is the time to let it completely go. I don't care if he needed help. He's no longer your issue. He's no longer our issue. But she told me that God would take a blessing from me if basically so much, because I told my mom when he got back into the house, I said, Mom, I'm not helping him with nothing. I don't care if he needs to wash. I don't care if he needs his socks on. He needs toothpaste on his toothbrush. I'm not doing it. And she said, God would take a blessing from you because although the circumstances is where he need us now, he's handicapped. He need us now. He need us to help him get his strength back. Although he done all the dirt that he did, we still have this opportunity to help him. And she was telling me to have a heart about the situation. He's a handicapped man now. Let's just help him. So I did as my mother told me to do. So when I got home from school, I would fix his bath water for him, get his clothes laid out for him so he can get himself dressed. He can wash himself off. And then he would get himself up and all that good stuff like that. So, after he was at the house for like a year or so, he was doing awesome. His attitude changed some. He was becoming like a nicer person a little bit. But when he first got in the house, his body weight was like really poor. He was just in an accident. He stayed in the hospital for a while. He was paralyzed. And then my mother got his strength back up. I'm talking like his arms, he got muscles again. His health reports came back well, all due to my mother helping him. And we were also a part of that because, like I said, I would come home and help him in the afternoon when I got off of school, and my brothers and sisters would do the same as well. But yeah, I was very upset with her for letting him back in because when he was in the home, it was like a dark cloud in the house. It was sadness, but when he was gone, it was peace. We were happy. It's like a spirit. You felt a good spirit when he was away, but when he came back in, it's like that dark gloom spirit came right back. And I hated feeling that way in the house.
Now, you have a younger sister and an older brother.
I do.
What were their reactions and their responses to him? How did they interact? Did your brother try to protect your mother, or how did that work?
It did at times. And I remember one incident when my mother and him were having an argument. My brother kind of like jumped in his face, and he kind of put his fist up like he was about to punch my brother. And my brother backed away, and my mother jumped in kind of thing. But he didn't hit my brother, but he was acting like he was going to hit my brother. But we all were trying to like protect her and things like that. Even if at that point it caused us getting hurt, like, so what? We're tired of seeing her being hurt. But yeah, he would definitely try and protect me.
To protect you, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about March 12th, the day before everything happens. What do you remember about March 12th?
Actually, I don't remember anything about March 12th. What I remember was March 13th. Okay. The day my mother passed was so perfect. The morning I woke up for school was beautiful. The day at school, I remember my outfit I wore. I had on a red blouse and some black slacks and some black kind of like pump shoes.
Okay.
And the day was beautiful and sunshiny, and there was no arguing in the home at all.
Okay.
No arguing at all. And I was thinking, wow, this is strange. This is different. And Rhea was fine. Me and Rhea was talking like we always do. And, the day was beautiful. It was normal. Well, not normal, but it was better than what I would normally expect on a normal day. And nightfall came, and we got ready for bed, took our baths and all that. Dorian wasn't home because he was allowed to stay a little longer because he was older than me and my sister. We had a different curfew than what he had. So he wasn't home yet, but me and Rhea, of course, was in the house. And Rhea was on the phone with one of her friends. And I remember I had just got through saying my prayers. And I laid down to go to bed. And then that's when the perfect day turned to the most awful day.
How was your mother that day?
Fine. She
And
was fine.
Douglas?
The only thing different in her day was that she decided to sleep in her own bed because she was tired of sleeping in a twin bunk bed. That's what me and my sister had. We had a twin bunk bed, and she said, you know what? I need to sleep in my own bed because she wasn't sleeping in her room. She gave up her room completely to give to him so he can have to get himself together. And she was sleeping in our bed with us, and she did that. She said, forget this. I'm sleeping in my room tonight.
So, Megan, what happened?
Like I said, I just finished my prayers and I laid down. As soon as I laid down, I heard a pow. I jumped up so fast. My sister was in the living room. I jumped up. I looked at her. We had double doors in our house. I looked at her and she looked at me like, I don't know. And so I went back towards my mother's room and I called out to her. I said, Mama. And she didn't answer me. Back here any further, you want to get yours too. And then I knew he had done something to her. As soon as he said that, I ran out of the house. I grabbed my sister by her arm. I grabbed her, yanked her out of the front door. We had no shoes on, no socks on. I'm in my pajamas. And there was a hotel right next to our house. And we run into the hotel. We're crying. We're hysterical. But before we got to the hotel, I heard a second pow. And I looked back at my mother's bedroom window. And it was just dark. I can still just see it. I looked back at her window, and we continued to run to the hotel. We're telling the hotel clerk, please call the police. My mother's been shot. My mother's been shot. Something's wrong. We didn't even stay in the hotel. We were so hysterical. We ran to the next neighborhood because that's where my brother always hanged out, in our old neighborhood. We ran all the way down there barefoot, nonstop, until we got to one of our, the house he was at, which is one of our friends' homes that he was at. And we telling him everything that happened. And he took off and he ran to the house through the short back way. And as him and his friend run to the house, the police are already at our home, which I didn't know at the time. And me and my sister, I'm pacing back and forth. I'm trying to calm Rhea down. I'm telling her, Mommy always gets through this. No matter how much time she's been beaten, she always survived. It's okay. She's going to be okay. And I'm pacing back and forth. And I'm trying to keep her spirits up, just talking her through it like I always do. And then my brother came, my policeman brought my brother and his friend back, Marcus, brought him back to Marcus' house. And the coroner came as well. And the policemen were there. And that's when they sat me and my brother and sister down. And they told us she didn't make it. I was so shocked. I'm thinking, are you sure you got the right woman? My mother always makes it. But I was so shocked. I didn't even cry. I just stood there in complete denial because surely he's not talking about my mom. So the whole chaos is going on. My brother and my sister are, of course, crying. And I'm just in a daze. I'm just in a daze because this is just no way. So my grandmother, they called my grandmother. We called my grandmother, let her know what happened. Her and my uncle come to get us from my brother's friend house that we ran to. And they take us we go back to my grandmother's house, but on the way back to my grandmother's house, you have to pass our house. And as we were passing the house by, we saw the ambulance taking out my mother's body. And I just looked back at the house and I kept looking like, this is a movie. This is not real life. This can't be happening. And the whole ride, I didn't say anything. My grandmother was hysterical. My uncle was also hysterical. He was banging on the armrest of the car. And we drove back to my grandmother's house. And of course, by the time we got to my grandmother's house, my auntie was there. My cousins was already there. And they're breaking the news to the whole family. But still at this time, Joel, I have still not cried because I was still in denial. Like, this can't be real. I really thought this was a big dream because anything she's ever been through, she's always came out of. And that's what happened.
Was there any indication that Douglas planned to kill your mom?
The friend house that we ran to, Marcus, he told me years later that Douglas had asked for a gun. He was just asking for a gun and he didn't know why, but he kind of like brushed him off. Mm-hmm. And he told me he kind of somehow felt a little responsible that he didn't tell us or tell my mom, but he just thought he was just talking out of his head, like, what do you need a gun for, kind of thing. But there was no indication, which kind of should have been an indication because the day was perfect and the day was never really perfect at our house. But because the day was perfect, it was like, what's going on? But we just all enjoyed the peacefulness, and we rolled with it. But that was the only indication that my friend told me, Marcus told me years later, that Douglas asked him for a gun like the day or so before. But he just brushed it off and he never told my mom or me or anybody. Or Dorian.
So my next question was going to be, did you all know that he had a firearm? But I'm assuming that you didn't.
No.
Do you all know where he got the gun?
No. It never came up after the police reports and everything like that. Everything seemed kind of fuzzy at that time, but we never knew where it came from or who it was registered to or anything.
Now, prior to your mother's death, had you ever experienced any type of loss before?
Yes, we had a loss. A great-grandmother lost. I believe she was in her 80s. It was, I think she, like a smooth passing, nothing dramatic happened with her, just like old age kind of thing. And one other loss back in 1995, it was another domestic loss. My mother's godson, he was actually shot by his girlfriend's boyfriend. He was trying to protect her, and he got killed in the process of protecting her. But that was the only loss.
So were you involved at all in your mother's funeral planning arrangements?
I would say we were involved. Yes, we were able to pick out the casket and what she wore and how we would like her hair, how we knew she liked to wear her hair. So yeah, we were definitely involved in the arrangement.
Looking back now, do you have peace about the decisions that you guys made at that time?
We were young. I was 14 when she passed. I wish we had more of a voice, but because with everything going on, it was so chaotic still, even after 2 weeks after her passing and up to the funeral. Yeah, I'm at peace with the decisions we made for her arrangements. It was a beautiful service. I remember the church being packed with people. The whole church was packed with people there. And I remember some friends from high school were there as well, which I thought was real sweet, how nice of them to have came out. And it was on a Wednesday. That was definitely a day of school. But yeah, I was satisfied.
So Megan, let's talk about what happens after your mom died. Where did you and your sister and brother go to live, and what resources were made available to you, if any, to process everything that had happened to you?
We went to go live with my grandmother, and me and my sister were supposed to go to a counseling class to help, and it was supposed to be other kids as well as in Beaufort and Port Royal. It's supposed to be a counseling class for grief and things of that sort. So you can go and talk about your feelings, but the class ended up being about something completely different than what it was supposed to be about. So we never went to a class or to deal with it in a professional way. You can always kind of talk to your family, but then they're going through the same grief as you are going through. So everybody always gave you that, it's going to be okay. She's looking down on you, looking over you, watching over you kind of sentiment. But it was never anybody where you can really sit down and talk one-on-one to express what you were actually feeling. So we didn't have too many resources. They might have been available, but we didn't know of it. So you kind of not got over it, but you kind of went on with your day the best way you kind of knew how.
So how did you change as a person after going through this experience? Because I remember your personality just being so bubbly and happy and smiling and always seeing those dimples.
Well, honey, I tell you, if I had one of those masks that had the smile on it and then you take it off and you see the sadness, that was me all during high school. I was not happy. I might have smiled in the hallways. I might have appeared happy, but I was so broken inside. I was so broken inside. And I didn't think anybody could really relate to me because in my mind, everybody had the perfect household. They had the perfect mother. They had the perfect father. I thought that we were the only persons going through domestic violence because everybody in high school seemed like they had no worries. They had no issues at the house. And maybe they didn't, I don't know. But it changed me as a person because it took me a long time to date. After high school, I would go out on dates, but I wouldn't make nobody serious. I wouldn't get serious about anybody. I looked at men completely different because I thought all men were the same because I didn't see a good example of a man and what a man should be, how he should treat a woman. I didn't have that proper example growing up. I had some examples of what a man should be, but I didn't have it constantly and consistently. Like right now, I'm 33 years old. I just recently got married. I just recently had a baby. So it took me a long time to get to this point where I'm able to have a conversation with a man, realize that all men are not the same. God played a heavy part in that. Going through the healing process as I'm still going through the healing process. Because for a long time, I would have dreams about my mom. I would have dreams about her still going through the abuse. And I would wake up in a cold sweat and realize it's just a dream. She's no longer going through that. I can try to move on. But it took a long time, man, to move on. It took a real long time to move on.